Here comes the run. It's J.K. Dobbins who's loose. J.K. Dobbins down the sideline. J.K. all the way to the house. Touchdown! Chargers! J.K. Dobbins! Get in on the action this season with Underdog's Pick'em game. Select higher or lower between 2 and 8 players and compete for up to 325 times your entry. Use code DIRECTOR when signing up to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free pick. Yo to Bolt fam, it's the Director. Dude, I'm still so hyped on what we witnessed yesterday. Chargers fans, I've been getting a lot of flack on Twitter, on social media for stating this, but I'm going to state it again, man, because I truly do believe that Chargers fans last night were witnesses to a pretty pivotal moment in Chargers history. This is the moment we change our stars. The fate of the Chargers has been rescued by Jim Harbaugh and company. No longer are the Chargers of the past going to haunt us every game forward. Now is the era of Jim Harbaugh, where things are a little bit different. These last second games, losses become victories, and crushing defeat becomes hope, and hope becomes success. It's all here, man. Everything I dreamt would come to the Chargers with the hiring of a Jim Harbaugh seems to be unfolding before our very eyes. And I think a lot of us are still playing catch up in terms of, believing it. And this game to me really, really did prove just that, man. What a night for Chargers fans. We're going to go over, all of the awesome stuff from last night. Sunday Night Football, big stage, and the Chargers really did put the league on notice with that one, man. It's going to be an awesome one. Before we do kick things off, man, shout out to the sponsor, Underdog. Use code DIRECTOR to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Newcomers, take advantage of the Monday Night Football free pick in CJ Stroud. Before we do kick off, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. The small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into it, baby. Lights, camera, action.
Who's got it better than us?
Into the end zone, Charger fans are witnesses to history!
Your Chargers versus Bengals post-game report the day after. I've been enjoying doing my shows with Bleacher Report lately, as it's allowed me to really get my thoughts, on camera immediately after the game, which is something you guys see, the games after Sunday. If you guys didn't check that out, some really awesome raw emotion in that one. Now that I've had some time to think about it, read, digest a little bit of what happened and what transpired last night, I got to tell you, it was a very special game for very many reasons. One of the first ones that I didn't want to overlook, okay? I've seen this all over social media. I've seen Chargers fans, sending me messages saying, hey, man, you should have been there. You should have seen the energy. You should have seen, the reaction from the Bolt fam last night. It was awesome. And my first segment here called Hello There, Bolt fam. Hello there, Bolt fam. This is pretty significant, man. As a Chargers fan since, 16, 17 years ago, this isn't something you saw all the time. Sure, there were moments, but this feels like a growing norm for the fan base. Chargers fans are showing up. The hype is growing. The Bolt fam is expanding. And the fans are representative of what's happening in LA. This team is changing. They're showing up. The fans are showing up. It was a full house last night, man. Every image, every video I've been sent, all of the firsthand, recollections or whatever from people, their experiences sending them to me, state that the Chargers had for a very, rare opportunity here to actually have a huge home field advantage. There were tons and tons of Chargers fans out there. And we saw that a couple of times in the game actually create an impact. I think there was a Bengals timeout that had to be had, maybe even a delay of game. I don't remember. But I do remember thinking, man, that's a lot of Chargers fans. Man, it's getting loud in there. Man, and then after the fact, seeing all the photos and the videos you guys have been sending me, it just looked like it was an awesome time. And I'm honestly just so grateful there were so many Chargers fans in the building to witness what was a very impactful and I'm going to say historic event for the Chargers going forward. This is a big deal. I'm actually going to go back to Twitter and I'm going to reinforce this a little bit with something I did post yesterday. It's gained a lot of traction on social media. There's going to be a lot of people pushing back on it. That's totally fine, man. At the end of the day, I'm not going to tell you how to Charger. I'm not going to tell you how to be a fan. Lots of fans from back in the day that have been hurt too many times to start embracing the change, which I completely understand, and other fans that, have been around long enough and do realize and recognize that this is real. This is a real thing. This is a real change. And this game is a key moment in that. I posted, this low-key might be one of the most important victories in Chargers history. We broke our chains. The era of chargering has come to an end. Welcome to the Jim Harbaugh Los Angeles Superchargers era. Of course, that popped off nice and happy there, 4.1K likes. That's because I feel like I'm not the only one feeling this way. I'm not the only one thinking this. The Chargers really did turn around the narrative last night. We were heading in a direction, dude. That's this next segment here called RIP Chargering. We were heading straight towards an old narrative, an old habit, something that has been hampering this team for the longest time in terms of narrative, in terms of dropping games at the last second, creating that classic Chargers heartache in the fourth quarter. Lots of people in my chat having PTSD flashbacks of the Jaguars game, which, again, completely justifiable. Some people throwing in the flag a bit early. We're all trying to protect ourselves from more heartache than we should take. You know what I mean? But this game, I could feel was different. And not to get a big ego or pat myself on the head or anything, or pat myself on the back or anything, but in my stream, I ran with that feeling in my gut. Like, this isn't going to be the same thing. There's too many things that have happened this year for me to sit back and accept that the Chargers are about to charger right now, that we're about to choke this game away. This is a new era. This is a new culture. This is a new team, a new identity. We are not the choking Los Angeles Chargers any longer. And I held true in that stream. And it was tough. It was difficult. I was nervous and scared just like everybody else. But in the end, the Chargers proved something to me. This ain't the same old Chargers. This ain't your daddy's Chargers. This is a new era. And what would have been a classic Chargers loss, in Sunday Night Football in front of the entire world, turned into a statement win. Watch out for the LA Chargers, because they're going to the postseason this year. They're definitely, in my opinion, you're crazy if you believe otherwise, they are definitely logging at least double-digit wins, and they could end up being a force in the postseason. And all of that happened in 2 minutes or less of game time last night, where there were many opportunities for the Chargers to drop this game, but they never stopped believing that they could win. And it's something that you heard in the locker room from Joey Bosa. He kind of said it, like, hey, we've been in this situation many times, and maybe in the past we didn't believe. Now it's a different situation. Now we believe. And again, don't take me direct quote for that, but it was along the lines of that. It's because the players feel it. The fans, me, feel it. I can't speak for everybody else, but I know a lot of people out there feel the same way. I feel it. I see it. And this is the reason why I chose this photo. Seeing Khalil Mack on the sideline wearing a headset, you know what I mean? Sideline for this game, but very much so still involved, speaks wonders to this whole idea. This man is as happy of a believer as I've ever seen, supporting his team in any way, shape, or form possible, and reaping the benefits of what this new culture change has brought to the team. This is a new Los Angeles Chargers team. The Chargers are believing it. Khalil Mack believes it. Joey Bosa believes it. Derwin believes it. Herbert believes it. Everybody knows that we are on to something special. Now the NFL knows this as well. I think us as Chargers fans with front row seats to this change, I think we had a better grip on what was happening, even though a lot of us, again, suffering from PTSD, haven't fully let ourselves embrace it yet. I think a lot of us understand that, hey, this could be for real. This could be, legitimate. And now the rest of the NFL in front of the biggest stage, Sunday Night Football, against an awesome opponent, the Cincinnati Bengals, which people are going to have different opinions on that. That's all totally fine. If anything, a powerhouse offense in front of the nation proved that this is a legitimate Chargers football team, and that all of the jokes and all of the flack that we've gotten in the past in terms of chargering, that's done. Goodbye. It is done. Watch out for the Jim Harbaugh era, because this Chargers team ain't the same. And I think the results are going to speak for themselves. Speaking of which, this game also proved to me, proved to a lot of people, and I think in particular a lot of doubters. Now, I'm not just talking Chargers fans that needed a little bit more proof in the pudding. I'm talking about NFL fans as a whole. That Jim Harbaugh is for real. There are many segments in Sunday Night Football. Of course, you have a big stage. They're going to be doing their homework and certainly putting in the work in terms of presentation. Of Jim Harbaugh's career, his tendencies as a coach, going from team to team, and the success that he's brought these teams along the way. Right? There's a magnifying glass put on all of these, right? Stanford, San Diego, of course, Michigan, San Francisco 49ers, like everywhere this man's gone, the same thing in terms of results have followed. And the Chargers now in this game have taken all of those facts and applied them to the season. Whoa. Jim Harbaugh all of a sudden is leading a 7-3 Chargers squad at the midpoint of the season, just past the midpoint of the season, into, the Dragons' lair of a stretch of games, right? The Bengals, certainly a tough matchup. Next week, we got the big one, which I will be attending in person, the Har Bowl, Chargers, Ravens, probably, in my opinion, the biggest game of the year. In my opinion. We are taking some serious momentum into that game, by the way. We've proven on a national stage that, hey, despite all of the doubt, despite all of the, pessimism that Jim could do it again, it's happening. How can you not look at the 7-3 team that just overcame one of their biggest obstacles in front of a national audience? How could you not believe that they're for real? And it's because of this man right here. Jim Harbaugh is for real, folks. All the things, and the reason I alluded to this, all the things that were leading up to his time here in San Diego, or in Los Angeles as the Chargers head coach, from his time in San Diego as the coach to his time coaching in San Diego and in Stanford, et cetera, to now, all the success that he's had, rinse and repeat, it is happening again. The doubts, I guess the fear that the Chargers would be the exception, that, oh man, of course we wouldn't benefit from the same thing every other team that Jim Harbaugh's coaches has benefited from. That fear for me has been washed away. Sure, it's not going to be a perfect fairy tale, Cinderella story of a season for the Chargers every single year. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. Next week may be a tough game. Tough in the terms of who knows what's going to happen. But I've seen so much this season that my foundation is very firm. I believe in Coach Harbaugh. I believe that Jim is going to get this team right. And honestly, and I'm saying this from the bottom of my heart, Jim Harbaugh is going to win this team a championship. Jim Harbaugh is going to lead the Chargers to a Super Bowl win. I don't know if it's this year. I don't know if it's next year. I don't know if it's in the next 5 years. Whatever. I believe it's going to happen. Because that is the kind of move the Chargers just made this last year. This is the very thing all of us were rooting for and shouting for and screaming for when the idea that Jim Harbaugh could become the Chargers' next head coach. This is all becoming true now. It happened, and it's happening in front of us. Fantastic day, fantastic season so far, and it ain't over yet, Bull fam. Hold on to your butts. Speaking of narratives, one extremely important narrative that I wanted to put into the limelight in this game was the Justin Herbert, the Bengals versus Chargers. This was actually a pretty big narrative. And a lot of people, again, are going to look at the Bengals record. What were they, 4-6 coming into the game? So now 4-7, right? They're going to look at that record and say, the Chargers, they've been beaten up on bad teams, right? They got a Joe Burrow and messy defensive Bengals. Of course, they were going to win that game. We had the Titans, of course, that we pounded into the ground, and the Cardinals, or not the Cardinals, the Carolina Panthers, et cetera, et cetera. They're going to look at this game and say, yeah, of course, who's impressed? Nobody's impressed. It's the Bengals, right? They suck. I'm telling you right now, guys, and again, maybe compliments to Bengals fans and my condolences even, that's a good football team. Like, yeah, their defense needs some work, but they got Hendrickson, who's, league-leading sack defensive end, right? They got some pieces out there. But the biggest thing that they got going for them is that offense, which honestly reminds me a little bit of the Chargers in the past. They got that gunslinging quarterback. They got them big old weapons and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Gesicki and now Chase Brown, who's awesome, right? That's a good football team. And one that almost came back and beat us last night. And guess what? They almost came back and beat the Ravens last week. They've had some huge games this season. Yeah, I think they're going to fall short of expectations. I think that they're heading towards maybe a disappointing season in Cincinnati, but it doesn't mean that's a bad football team. That is a very good football team with an elite offense that has been falling short. They honestly remind me a lot of the Chargers of the past. They have been charging more than the Chargers have this season by a long shot. And yeah, we were fortunate that they did that. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you guys and say, hey, man, if it weren't for the missed field goal or whatever, would we still be here? Sure. Things might have been different. I know math tells me we still would have won because we scored a touchdown, right? But it could have changed the momentum of the game, the situations of the game, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, whatever. The point being is the Chargers went up against a good team, right? And they found a way to win. Some of the narratives leading into this game, Joe Burrow versus Justin Herbert. Wow! We're going to get into all the Justin specifics here in a second. I won't overload you guys. But did Justin Herbert not prove that he is the man? Sure, the second half maybe not as firm as the first, but that first half of Justin Herbert football was maybe some of the best I've ever seen as a Chargers fan. Holy smokes, throw after throw. And that's not to say Joe Burrow had a bad day. No, he had a good day, man. I liked the Joe Burrow game. Man, he looked good. Justin Herbert looked better. The other narrative coming into this game, powerhouse offense, Cincinnati Bengals. Immovable defense, Los Angeles Chargers. Who's going to come out on top? Arguably, it was exactly as advertised. This is something I predicted in my video, too, that the Chargers defense would look great despite giving up the most points of the season, which happened. Chargers gave up 27 points, obviously the most that we've given up in 2024. But they held on. The defense did just enough. You often see games in Chargers history where Justin Herbert has to shoulder everything, just like we saw with Joe Burrow last night. You got to shoulder the entire weight of the team, and it's not enough because the defense can't keep up. That happened to the Bengals last night, and that's something that's happened to the Chargers and Justin Herbert over and over and over in his career. The defense did not give up this game. Sure, 27 points is a lot, but that's the Bengals we're talking about. That team, at any given day, could score 40 points. It did the week before. You know what I mean? The defense did good. And that narrative also, I think, goes to the Chargers. That defense held it down. And they held it down just enough for Justin Herbert to go in there and make up that deficit. It was awesome. It was great. It was scary. It was very scary in the second half. I will say that it was a back and forth for a lot of it, right? The Chargers' defense were dominant in the first half. They let up a lot in the third quarter, maybe a third quarter and then a half of the fourth quarter. In which they gave up, 21 unanswered points. That was scary, but they held on just long enough, for my opinion, yes, to come out on top. But again, that's why it was such a good matchup. Powerhouse offense versus great defense. Justin Herbert versus Joe Burrow. Just lots on the line for both teams. It was great. It was an awesome, as a football fanatic, even if I wasn't a Chargers fan, you guys in the comments, if anybody here is visiting from a different fandom and you agree with me, please speak up. As a football fanatic, that was an awesome, awesome Sunday night football game with a lot of cool narratives leading into it and an awesome result at the end. Lots of points scored, lots of big moments. It was great. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. Next up, Turbo Herbo. Oh, man, I'm so excited to talk. Dude, this is something, I mentioned this in my Bleacher Report episode last night. This is something that you see a lot in the history of a Greg Roman offense, right? And this is one of those things where I kind of brushed off when I learned that Greg Roman was going to be the OC for the Chargers and that they were going to become a running team, and seeing the kind of teams that Greg Roman came from, primarily Baltimore with Lamar Jackson, there was this idea of, what if Herbert turns it on? You know, what if we turn Herbert into like a Josh Allen type quarterback where, yeah, he's got the big arm, but he's going to start taking off? I dismissed it because I was like, I just don't think that's what the Chargers want. It doesn't feel like it's part of their DNA, you know? Ever since Herbert was drafted, it feels like the coaching has been drilling into his head. Don't run the football. Don't risk injury. Anthony Lynn days, it felt very, very evident then, right? It felt like they were trying to rein him in because fresh off of, his days at Oregon, the dude ran a lot. The dude ran. And it felt like Anthony Lynn spent some time reeling that back in, right? Like, hey, man, we got to stay in that pocket a little longer. We got to, protect our quarterback, yada, yada, yada. And then the Brandon Staley days did not help at all. It feels like it was reinforced even more. And so this tool that Justin Herbert had on his utility belt more or less got holstered, for the past several seasons. And maybe even the beginning, part of this season. I think mainly because he was dealing with a foot injury, right? But as soon as everything seemed to be behind him in terms of the injury and he started to rev up, I'm kind of starting to think that the Chargers, Jim and Greg Roman and company, have been preparing Justin Herbert to let it loose, man. Let's do this. If you feel that this particular skill of yours is going to bring us more success and you can practice this running responsibly and protect yourself and keep yourself on the field despite, the risk and reward here, let's do it. And we've been seeing this the past several weeks. We've been seeing Justin Herbert add that threat to the field for those defenses. And I don't know if defenses have quite adjusted to it yet. It's really hard to adjust to, by the way. That's why the Chargers, despite being such a good defense, struggle versus mobile quarterbacks, because it's really difficult to contain talent like that, because you got to account for, who's a spy, how are we going to contain, what kind of, coverage are we looking at? What kind of zones are we looking at? Because we got to keep someone close to the quarterback. Like, there's a lot that goes into defending a quarterback that's really good at passing and it can also run the football. That's why, in my opinion, Josh Allen has been so good. Yeah, Allen's not a bad passer, but you add the fact that he can run like crazy. It adds up to one of the best quarterbacks in football. Mahomes does that quite often as well. You think of some of the most successful quarterbacks in football today, most of them are running. A lot of them have that part of their game on full display. And the Chargers feel like they're finally adding that to the arsenal. You guys see Josh Allen's touchdown last night? The Bengals, the Bills finally take down the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs no longer undefeated. You know how that game was won by Buffalo? It was Josh Allen, his physicality. And honestly, watching that, and this for me personally, I don't know if anybody else felt the same way, but watching that game and seeing what Josh Allen did and thinking, wow, what a quarterback. That's awesome. Honestly, all of us rooting for Buffalo, obviously. And then going to this game and seeing Justin Herbert take off, I was like, we have Josh Allen. We're about to enter the fold in the NFL of watch out for Justin Herbert, the dual threat quarterback. We have him. Josh Allen, what is he? Is he the same, like 6'5", 6'6", big, physical, kind of like a Cam Newton-style runner? We have that in Justin Herbert. And he's been awesome at this aspect in his game the past several weeks now. And I think it's something that's going to stick around, man. I'm very excited. Of course, there is risk. We saw the fumble, right? That was definitely something that comes with the risk of this, and it's something that you see with all quarterbacks in the league that run. But it feels like Justin Herbert's slowly turning into that guy. And I think modern NFL needs that. NFL of the past, your Phillip Rivers, your Ben Roethlisbergers, your Eli Mannings, you're not going to see a lot of running. In 2024, I think you need some mobility. And Justin Herbert is finally being let loose. Now, leading into the next segment here, what about the passing? What about Justin Herbert, the passer? The talent, we'll say even. That first quarter of Chargers football, I'll say the first half, was perhaps one of the most elite offensive performances I've ever seen. Some of the biggest plays I've seen from Justin Herbert's career came in the first half of that game. I don't know about you guys, and I was freaking out the entire live stream. Some of those throws were unreal. Was it the first touchdown, right, to Will Dissly? You had to put that ball in the perfect spot. You had to give it the perfect amount of touch, the perfect amount of velocity. You got to lead your receiver upfield, right? Everything had to come together on that throw, and it was as impressive as any throw I've seen in the NFL. And you know what? Herbert did that over and over and over and over again in that game. It was unbelievable. It was spectacular, the kind of throws we were seeing. A lot of the times, Justin Herbert, pockets collapsing, navigates out, on the run, back foot, throws a laser. Quentin Johnston touchdown. Oh my word. Go back, watch the highlights for yourselves. Look at the Justin Herbert elite performance last night. Unbelievable. And when he couldn't get it done through the air, he was taken off on the ground. Beautiful. A big reason why the air game looked so spectacular last night in the first half, I'll say, and then clutch in the fourth quarter, was Ladd McConkey and Quentin Johnston. Lightning Ladd, though, man, we got something special here. Now, a lot of people are still saying the Chargers still need a number one wide receiver, which I'm actually going to go ahead and say, yeah, we do. We do. We need a 1A. We need a prototypical wide receiver. And the biggest example I've been using pretty much all season is, to me, Ladd McConkey screams a lot of different resemblances to Tyler Lockett for me. Tyler Lockett, wow, what a talent. What a dangerous threat through the air for Geno Smith and previous Russell Wilson. That's a weapon. Nobody's going to tell you, if you've been watching the Seahawks the past 10 years or so, that Tyler Lockett wasn't a big deal for their success. He was a big reason for it. But they also got this guy recently in DK Metcalf, right? And when you add those two pieces of the puzzle there for that passing game, it becomes ridiculous. And it doesn't bury a Tyler Lockett. Not at least right now. Tyler's getting a little bit older, right? That comparison may be a little dated, but you know what I mean. When you pair a Ladd McConkey with the number one, amazing things are going to happen. And right now, McConkey, wide receiver one, he's getting it done. But I do kind of agree still that the Chargers could use another a true, like, prototypical 6'2", 6'3" physical wide receiver to be a wide receiver one. But right now, McConkey, he wouldn't take a back seat too far. He'd be wide receiver 1B. You know what I mean? Quentin Johnston certainly taking that role and running with it as a kind of an outside threat. Justin Herbert was targeting him like crazy. Sure, he's not a 50-50 guy like Mike Williams was, but he's a speed guy, and we've seen Herbert taking those shots. And it's starting to make defenses honest. It really is. You're seeing that impact. Like, hey, yeah, we don't have Mike. We don't have even DJ Chark out there right now. But we got weapons, and we're going to throw it. And that's causing defenses to react different to the Chargers. And then you got the talent. And the reason why I wanted to lead into this segment with, like, yeah, I guess we could still use a wide receiver one. He'll only help McConkey. It'll help the team. But also, McConkey, even in the situation the Chargers are in right now in terms of talent, we can win with McConkey wide receiver one. Like, we will thrive as this chemistry continues to grow between Herbert and McConkey, because McConkey is a special talent. Some of the biggest plays of the night came from route running separation in hands that McConkey, and very specifically McConkey, can offer this team. That dig route that I think it converted a huge first down late in the game. Chargers positioned themselves for a field goal at least to take the lead and win the game. That is a classic Ladd McConkey move right there. He is more than capable of being that dangerous weapon going forward, and I knew it. That by the halfway point of the season, we're going to have a wide receiver one on this squad. He's going to be a huge, dangerous threat, and he's going to continue providing that the rest of the season. We have some awesome pieces to build with, and that's why I say if the Chargers do pursue wide receiver one talent in the next draft, free agency, whatever, it would be a 1A, 1B situation, because McConkey is just as dangerous. We've seen this offense and Justin Herbert produce two 1,000-yard receivers before. We're heading in the same direction. McConkey's amazing. QJ's adding a lot of flavor, a lot of big playability. It's awesome. Congratulations. Chargers, I think, are slowly figuring out their wide receiver situation. Last couple of shout-outs for this video. Thule is him, dude. I don't know. Thule and a lot of the defensive guys, Dan Henley's been insane. A lot of defensive effort out there that's been looking awesome, right? Tito had some good moments as well. But I don't think anybody's been turning more heads in the Chargers defense than Thule Tuipulotu, who logged, was it 1 or 2 sacks? Maybe it was 1.5 sacks last night. Which totals over the last, I think, 4 games, 7 sacks in total for Thule Tuipulotu in the last 4 games combined. I think, don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure that's the number. That's absolutely ludicrous. And this is a team who we know doubled down on the position. We had Joey Bosa out there, but on a snap count, right? And we knew that could be a situation going into the season. So what did the Chargers do? They doubled down. They picked up Bud Dupree, who also was a presence in the game last night and has been a presence in this season. I know he's got like 3 or 4 sacks in the year, right? Like, he's been an awesome rotational guy, and right now in situations where we need him with Khalil Mack on the sideline, Joey Bosa in a snap count, like, he's been great, but no one has showed up more than Thule. Thule has been everything we thought he would be, and despite the fact that it's a loaded edge room, he's still been showing up, putting up big numbers, and it's been awesome to watch. We have a legitimate edge elite player in Thule Tuipulotu going forward, because we don't know what the situation is going to be with Joey and Khalil going forward. There's contracts to take into consideration, and injuries to take into consideration, and age. But we know one thing for certain is that we have at least one extremely talented, elite-level edge player in Thule that's going to be sticking around for the long run, and we're very fortunate for it. Another shout-out to, of course, the man himself, J.K. Dobbins. Oh, by the way, before we move on from this, I should have grabbed a picture of him, too. Happy birthday to Dan Henley, who's out there. I'm sure he's getting his flowers from the team today. J.K. Dobbins. What did I say on this segment? Dobbins finds a way. J.K. Dobbins, my man, dude's a legend. He's definitely there was so much talk about his pursuit of comeback player of the year. There was maybe I talked a little bit about how the Bengals' run defense was sneakily not too bad. Despite that, J.K. found some space to be the hero of the game at the end with that run. We were looking at maybe scoring a field goal. J.K. had other plans. He takes it for a touchdown. One of the biggest moments I can remember as a Chargers fan, screaming on that moment. Just like, oh my God, here we go. It's J.K. Dobbins. And he continues to add to his resume for comeback player of the year. 2 touchdowns, at least, 50-something yards in the day. Great day for J.K. Dobbins. And thank you for saving my fantasy day, too. I was about to lose to McKay. You guys know how that feels. I don't want to lose. We got J.K. Dobbins out here. Last couple of things I do want to mention. Second half woes, because I have heard a lot about this. I understand the situation. The team is not perfect, but I did want to address it and tell you guys my feelings on it. Yes, the Chargers had an insane first half. Second half, and we've seen a bit of a trend here, not as pretty. You know what I mean? And it's something that has remained, a bit of a problem throughout the season. But it's a shrinking one. Does that make sense? Like, yeah, it's an issue, and we got to figure it out. But it is being figured out. We also, as real of the admitting that it's a problem is important, it's also important to realize that it is actually improving. It's a shrinking issue. The Chargers, yeah, man, it would have been nice to score in the third quarter and not let that 21-point, unanswered point situation unfold or like the way it did. But we did score. We did put up points in the fourth. Like, we did address it. It got close there for a minute, but it's a problem that is shrinking. They're slowly figuring it out. And that's part of the whole Jim Harbaugh experience. Like, hey, we had a bit of a slow start, right? I mean, yeah, we've been winning games and this and that, but, we were trying to figure out the offense. Defense is looking awesome, but where could we need improvement, yada, yada, yada. We're at a point now in the season where I'm starting to notice the improvement. I'm starting to see where we were and where we are and how much work in between has resulted in actual change. And what I'm seeing is a second half team that, yeah, still has problems, but I'm also seeing movement in the right direction. And you're going to see a drastic shift this year into next year in terms of, they're going to pick up different players, more talent. They're going to have a more defined and specific look at what the team needs. It's going to be awesome. And I do think the reason why I'm putting this in the foreground is that it is going to continue to improve. We're in week 11. We got several weeks until the end of the season and the postseason. There's going to be even more improvement to be had between now and then. And I do think the Chargers will become a very legitimate, second half threat at some point down the line. Maybe it's not right now, but I'm seeing improvement. Okay? Finally, to close out the video. This Chargers team is for real. like we stated earlier, this is not the same old Chargers. This is a very real Jim Harbaugh narrative that we see unfolding, a very real MVP candidate Justin Herbert year unfolding, and a very successful season unfolding. The Chargers went from worst last season in a lot of different metrics, certainly in terms of lower, percentage wins and all that kind of stuff. Not to first, but holy crap. So not from worst to first, but holy crap. Have we firmly inserted ourselves into legitimate threats? I was looking at an article this morning saying, hey man, the Chargers, yeah, maybe we're not a top 10 Super Bowl, or maybe not, we're not a top 5 Super Bowl hopeful, but yeah, we're probably in the top 10 now, right? In terms of teams, we're probably a top 10 Super Bowl hopeful team. Whereas you take a look at the pretenders and the guys, teams stretching and all that kind of stuff. The Chargers are no longer one of those teams. The Chargers are, and maybe at the bottom half, but are Super Bowl hopefuls. We are very legitimate playoff contenders and threats. And it's so far away from what we were last season that you can't help but wonder what's to come. If we're this good now, how good will we be in a year? What's the sort of success we're going to see even in this season? And how much does the contrast between where we were and where we are now speak for the next step and the next step and the next step after that? The improvement is staggering. It's real. It's evident now. We have evidence that it's working. And it's one that I'm very happy to say I'm on this side of the sand. A line has been drawn on the sand. Am I scared? Am I going to stay the same old pessimistic, trying to protect my feelings Chargers fan? Or am I going to step over this side and say, hey, I'm going to ride this Jim Harbaugh era with all the hype and optimism and excitement as I can, because this is a real change that I'm seeing. And I want to bask in every glorious moment of it, because I don't know if we'll ever see as big of a change and as big of a swing in culture and success as we're seeing right now as Chargers fans. I firmly believe it. I'm very excited for the future. And honestly, it was tough not to get emotional in that game last night. This is a big deal, big moment for Chargers fans. And I hope everybody is as excited and as hopeful as me that it will translate into some pretty significant accolades for this team in the very near future. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If you like what you saw here, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. We'll see you next time. And as always, bolt up and stay frosty. Jim Harbaugh is going to bring this team a Super Bowl, man. Mark my words.